It's my joy to be working with Lyle on launching his new book, Turn the Tide, which he's going to be sharing with us about now and updating us all. We have got a pre-sale special that is for you today. And we were going to be selling the book here physically, but there were just some delays in printing. We were going to be selling it here, autographed for $40. It's a book you need to invest in if you care about this mission. As a conference special, as a summit special, we're actually taking pre-sales with the promise of shipping it next month to you. And we will do so without the cost of shipping, and you will still get an autographed copy. And what's better, you can get a professional photo with Lyle or a photo of Lyle. Which is pretty. I sent him a selfie with a photo of him yesterday before he got here. When you buy that book, you will be financially supporting both this ministry, church and state, because the profits will go to supporting this ministry as well as Family First, who generously sowed into Lyle taking the time to write that book. So let's watch that promo video again if you can. Abraham, that's been very well made. You'll be able to go to Lyle's Facebook page and share this. The next one, that's the one. All right, go.
I'm really excited about my new book, Turn the Tide, a letter to the Antipodean church. This has really come about because of a question that I'm asked almost every time I speak, and that is, where is the church? People, when they hear about the political trouble in our nation and the mess that we are in as a society, as a nation that's come through our politics, they always say, where is the church? So this is my attempt to try and answer that question, to try and help move the conversation in the church, prompt the church to a discussion about how we can better engage politics for the sake of our nation, for the sake of our kids and our grandkids. Head to this website, turnthetide.au, to order your copy today.
Look, this is what this whole session is about. Its politics is changing, and we have to turn the tide of the direction of degeneration that has happened, called progressing, for the last few decades. And the question really is, where is the church? So to answer that question, would you please welcome to the stage the hard-working, sacrificial servant of political advocacy in this nation, Lyle Shelton.
It's such a privilege to be here, and I just want to start by honouring Dave and Naomi for putting on this event now in its 9th year, and creating a platform where, or a space where all of us can come together in this mad moment of our history and have our sanity certified together by being in the room. So, Dave, thank you so much for what you're doing, and we really appreciate it. Please, And I want to thank all of you as well. It feels like a family gathering. So I'm so sorry I don't remember everyone's names, but just the appreciation and the support that comes from so many of you in this room over many, many years of the journey that I've been on, and of course many others in this room. We've all been on a journey together because we care about our nation. And so thank you for your prayers, thank you for your support, and for supporting a day like today, this important conference. Well, as Dave said, it's such a joy to be here to talk about my new book. I'm so sorry we don't have it in the printed form. We worked very hard. We just couldn't quite meet the deadline, but it is very, very close. And hopefully in the next week or two, it'll be rolling off the presses, and we'll be able to get copies to those of you who are able to pre-order today. But just to start with, a big part of the book, and I'll just outline some of the key themes. There's 4 chapters on something that I was involved in the Queensland Supreme Court yesterday, and that's this drag queen case. And it goes back to 2020 when I was living here in Brisbane for those brief 3 years. And drag queen story time happened in the Brisbane City Council library. Some young members of the LNP went and protested, and very gently went into the library and firmly but clearly said, drag queens are not for kids, drag queens are not for kids. And I saw this online and I thought, these are brave young people. So I wrote a blog and started researching these drag queens, and that's got me into a lot of trouble. And so yesterday I was in the Queensland Supreme Court as part of what's now our 7th year of litigation since they sued me for saying that they were dangerous role models for children. And we had a bit of a setback yesterday, and John Steenhoff, my lawyer, who's here today, and I can't say how much I appreciate John and the team. Yeah. John will correct all the mistakes that I make about the legal case and the terminology. But he's become a good friend, and they've got an amazing team, and the generosity of their supporters and those of you who donate to HRLA makes it possible for us to engage in this sort of litigation. So we had a bit of a setback yesterday. We've been sent back to the tribunal, and it's ongoing. But that's a headline from the Courier Mail a few years ago. That's the two drag queens who are suing me. Dwayne Hill is the man dressed as a woman there. He's a same-sex attracted man who performs drag. We've got Johnny Valkyrie, who is a woman who presents as a man. She tragically has had a double mastectomy, so she can present as a man, and that's a really sad state of affairs. But I'm going to show you some images which very much prompted me to want to write about this and expose the agenda of Drag Queen Storytime. This was from Johnny Valkyrie's Facebook page after I saw the protest in the Brisbane City Council library by those brave LNP kids who, by the way, were thrown under the bus by the LNP, but that you can read about it in my book, Turn the Tide. This is from Johnny's page. That's a group of young women who have had their breasts cut off. You can see the scars. That prompted me to think that these drag queens are not appropriate role models for children. Now, that's from Dwayne Hills. I'll get that off quickly. That's also from some other drag queens that were sent to me, and I'm sorry to do that, but I thought long and hard about whether I should show those images because they were on the Facebook pages of drag queens in Australia reading to little kids. This is part of an agenda of the LGBTIQA+ political movement. I have no beef against same-sex attracted people. There's a political movement that wants to indoctrinate your children and grandchildren into queer culture. What is queer culture? It is sexualised, radical LGBTIQA+ sexualised culture, and it's gender fluid culture. And how do I know that? Well, I knew that by observing Drag Queen Storytime, but in my court case, even last year in the appeal that was run against me in the Queensland Civil and Administrative Tribunal, their expert witnesses said this is what their aim is. It's in black and white from academics that put on expert witness, and again, you can read about the detail in my book. They are targeting 2 to 8-year-olds. This is not appropriate. That image on the screen there is of our Governor-General. The one in the pink is the Governor-General, in case you're confused. The other one is Shane Jennick, another drag queen which reads to children. And Shane Jennick is the co-patron with the Governor-General of Equality Australia. Remember the same-sex marriage campaign that was called Australian Marriage Equality? They didn't go away after the marriage campaign. They simply rebranded into Equality Australia and went after Christian schools, running lawsuits against Christian schools that want to have teachers that believe that there's boys and there's girls only. This is an insidious organisation. The Governor-General is the co-patron of that, along with the drag queen that reads to children called Shane Jennick. We've got problems in this country, folks, so you can read about that in the book. So, as Dave said in the introduction, this book has come about because of, I guess, a passion on my heart, and I know it's a passion on the hearts of all of you people. In fact, someone at lunchtime, in fact, probably more than one person at lunchtime, came up to me and said, where is the church in all this? It's the constant refrain. It's why Dave does what he does. It's why so many of us are doing what we do. And I've been thinking about this question for about 20 years or longer. Why is it that the church fails to get involved in these obvious areas of injustice and unrighteousness that are coming to us like a flood from our political system? And I believe the answer is predominantly a theological problem. It's because we think that the main purpose and mission of church is to save souls to get them to heaven. Now, don't get me wrong, that's a good thing. I want to see people saved and come to know the Lord Jesus Christ and have an eternity with Christ. But I don't think that's our eternal destination. The Lord's Prayer says, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. It doesn't say, pray that you can save people to get them out of earth to go to heaven. It doesn't say that. Jesus' passion, his prayer that he taught his disciples to pray, is where you see hell on earth, your job is to bring heaven to earth. And I think the church has made a little bit of a detour, well-meaning, because we all want to see people come to the salvation knowledge of knowing and loving Jesus. But that's just the start of it. We have hell on earth. The images I just showed you that the drag queen and the LGBTIQA+ political movement want for our children is bringing hell to earth. Having girls take their breasts off to try and present as boys is hell on earth. Sexualising children is hell on earth. Our job as the church is to bring heaven to earth. So I unpack this in the first 3 chapters of Turn the Tide and try and give a bit of a Bush theologian's rationale to try and prompt a discussion. Yes, we want to save souls. I want to say to the church, let's walk and chew gum. Let's stop ignoring the obvious crisis in our nation. I was very pleased to have one of my heroes, Eric Metaxas. Who's read any of his books, his Bonhoeffer book? Lots of people in this room. I've had the privilege of meeting Eric, and I had the opportunity to have dinner with him and his wife in New York City in January this year. And I said, Eric, would you please endorse my book? And he very graciously said yes. It's very much prompted by a book that he wrote a few years ago called Letter to the American Church, a brilliant book. I'd encourage everyone to get that. And I really felt like we need a version for the Australian church. And so I started working on this book in that sort of vein. And Eric very kindly has said, share this book with as many pastors as you possibly can. The hour is late. And I believe the hour is very late. Some other kind people that endorsed my book is Bob McCoskrie, who's also one of my heroes. And Bob's in this room tonight from Family First New Zealand, not a political party, but we're working on getting him to see the light. But Bob, where are you? He's down the back there. Bob is another great hero in this room, and he's coming up to this is his 20th year of running Family First New Zealand, almost been a lone voice in that nation against all these issues, and he's very kindly endorsed the book. The subtitle is Letter to the Antipodean Church. Now, I've had a bit of pushback on the word Antipodean because a lot of people don't know what Antipodean means, but I'm a bit of a nerd. Antipodean simply refers to the geographical juxtaposition of Australia and New Zealand to the British Isles from where we were birthed as nations. And I've deliberately wanted to write the book to the Antipodean church because the problems in Australia and New Zealand are almost identical. And I know this from a decades-long friendship with Bob. And I guess for me, it's become a little bit more personal of late as well because 5 years ago, our daughter married a fine young New Zealander that he met in our church in Canberra. And my wife burst into tears when he proposed to my daughter because she said, our daughter is going to go and live in New Zealand, and she has. And we now have 2 beautiful grandchildren there. And so I feel very invested in New Zealand. I no longer tell jokes about New Zealand. Bob still hasn't got that memo, but I actually have really come to love the nation of New Zealand. It is a fantastic nation. And it's invested a lot into Australia. A lot of great Christian leaders have come out of New Zealand that have impacted Australia positively. And I think our ties are very much linked, of course, as the Anzac heritage. And so I feel very passionate, and this book is as much for my grandchildren and for the church in New Zealand as it is for Australia. My good friend Michelle Pearce at the Australian Christian Lobby was also kind enough to endorse it. That's my old book. It's called, I kid you not, Notes from 20 Years in the Trenches of the Culture War. Unfortunately, we don't have the new book here, but the old book is here. And if you'd like to get a copy of that, there's some copies over there. And Dave's, we've got a special conference price, a discounted price, obviously, for that. But that book, and look, today sort of brought back some memories, seeing that very powerful abortion video, Born Alive video by the ACL. I'm so proud of ACL doing something like that. But Nick Goiran, the politician from WA, he was one of the first to raise this issue. He and Dr. Mark Robinson from Queensland were the first parliamentarians to raise the issue of babies born alive and left to die. And they tabled in their parliaments in Western Australia and in Queensland the figures from the health department showing that this was happening. And of course, everyone said nothing to see here. And so I wrote about that in this book, which is now 6 years old. And a man called George Christensen very kindly did a book launch for me in August 2020 here in Brisbane. And he read that chapter of the book about Nick Goiran and Mark Robinson and the Born Alive issue. And he decided to put a bill into the federal parliament. In fact, he said on the night of the launch, I'm going to do this. 1 year later, George got up in the Federation chamber of the federal parliament with Alex Antic sitting in screenshot behind so that everyone could see, and he put forward a bill to try and save babies born alive and left to die. And he researched with the Parliamentary Library. They proved that it happened. And of course, he was ignored. But what it did is it brought the issue to the public attention. And again, in my new book, I've got a chapter on the abortion issue. I mentioned, this, and also the fact that the Prime Minister at the time, a man well known as a Christian, Scott Morrison, fobbed George off and actually wrote a letter back to George saying that he supports Australia's abortion to birth regime and the Medicare funding of it. And so I've detailed that in the book. And one of the chapters in the book, and again, this is a letter to the church to try and help wake the church up, because so many Christians were enamoured with the fact that we had, firstly, Kevin Rudd and then Scott Morrison as Christian politicians. But that chapter is called Christians in the Lodge, Injustice in the Parliament. And look, I feel very strongly about the way we speak of each other publicly as Christians, and I'm very loath to criticise other Christians in public. But I did go and see Mr. Morrison last year with a chapter of my book. I went to his office in Sydney, and we had a chat about political strategy, and it was a good chat. He's a man who does love God, and I respect him for that, but I disagree with the way that he has conducted himself in politics. He disagrees with the way I conduct myself. That's fine. We can have a civil discussion about that. So he's seen a chapter of this book. I gave him the chance to respond, but I felt like having discharged that duty, that I felt free to publish that chapter. So you'll be able to read my take on Kevin Rudd and Scott Morrison and the disappointment that they brought to the Christian constituency. Just because we have a Christian elected, church going and might go to church and praise Jesus, and I honour him for that. That's a brave thing to do, to put out there that you publicly love God. But I also felt that many of the unjust things that were done needed to be called out. So that's in the book, but you can read the prequel in I kid you not, the chapter on abortion there is called Blood on Our Medicare Card. So if you haven't read my first book, please read that. The chapter on abortion in the new book is called A Midwife's Tears, and refers to our Louise Adset, who's been here today, and so grateful for what her and Daniel have contributed to this debate, and of course showcased brilliantly in that video. So I'd encourage you to consider it. Just in closing, in my Bible reading this week, I've been reading through Kings and Chronicles, and of course it's the lamentable story of good kings, bad kings, mostly bad kings, the nation walking away from God, serving idols, etc. And I came across this. Would you just bear with me? I'll read this very quickly, but it really hit my spirit as I read it this week. It's from 2 Chronicles 15, verses 1 to 7. The Spirit of God came upon Azariah, the son of Obed. Could have been the Spirit of God came upon Dave Pellowe, the son of Miles. And he went out to meet Asa, Albanese, and said to him, "Hear me, Asa, and all Judah and Benjamin. The Lord is with you while you are with him. If you seek him, he will be found by you. But if you forsake him, he will forsake you." Folks, isn't that where we are in our nation at the moment? There's a big move that's really welled up, probably since COVID, but gathered momentum in the last 12 months with these marches for Australia. And yesterday I was interviewed by Scott Challen for his podcast. These people who are just crying out, "We want our country back." I think that's the cry behind One Nation, who we're going to hear from this afternoon. We want our country back. I want our country back as well. But what does the Bible say? If you seek him, he will be found by you. If you forsake him, he will forsake you. For a long time, Israel was without the true God. I think in the 70s and 80s, when meat pies, kangaroos, football and Holden cars, football, meat pies, kangaroo and Holden cars, the good old days, and you see these reels going around on social media as people from Gen X, my generation, are saying, where's that Australia gone? Well, that was a materialistic, hedonistic Australia. Sure, it was the good old days, but it was a day where we were without the true God. My generation stopped going to church, by and large. My grandparents' generation went to church. My uncles and aunties, they good people, Christian ethos, stopped going to church. Their kids, of course, not at all. We're a nation without God, without a teaching priest, and without the law. But when in their distress they turned to the Lord, the God of Israel, and sought him, he was found by them. In those times there was no peace to him who went out or him who came in, for great disturbances afflicted all the inhabitants of the lands. They were broken in pieces, nation was crushed by nation and city by city, for God troubled them with every sort of distress. Is that where we are at the moment? Every sort of distress in the nation. But the good news is, but you take courage. Do not let your hands be weak, for your work shall be rewarded. And I just feel that that's an encouragement to all of us. We know that the only way to get our nation back is for our nation to rediscover the God of the Bible. Our nation was a good nation. It was a nation that we loved and that, we can hark back to the good old days. What made us the good old days? The fact that in 1901, when we federated, 96% of the Australian population identified as Christian. It doesn't mean they were all saints, they weren't, but there was a Christian ethos animated by the scriptures, love of neighbour, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This was what our nation's value system was. That's what created a good society, a high trust society. We've lost that because we've lost the Lord. Now it's easy to blame immigrants, and yes, there's way too much immigration. We've gone overboard. We've let in people who don't share our values, who want Sharia law, things that are incompatible. But the real reason, I think, is not even that. Yes, these are problems. But the real reason is we've forgotten God. We've forgotten the God of our Bible. And if you want your country back, we need to rediscover the God of the Bible. So that's my encouragement. Turnthetide.au. It's a letter to the Antipodean Church, the Australian and New Zealand Church. I hope it'll provoke a conversation. I hope it'll help us expand our mission from soulless souls to looking at the issues of justice and righteousness in our nation, and hopefully encourage greater political action by the church, which is the hope of our nation. Thanks so much, and God bless you.